Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all on this dismal, dank and totally grey overcast and really depressing Sunday at the start of January? It's awful. It's exactly what everyone thinks January should look like. Wet, cold, miserable. And it is. Today it genuinely is. Anyway, folks, let's try and brighten things up. So, do you remember the halcyon days of the 70s? Some of you do. Some of you do. Don't try and deny it. And all you lot at the back who came in wheelchairs, you definitely remember the 70s. And you partied hard, which is why you're crippled now. But the 70s was great for movies, obviously, for music, even more obviously, but for comics and for movie magazines in the UK. I mean, in America and other territories like Marvel and DC never really went out of fashion. And there was always movie magazines as well that were out there. But in the UK, we got 2000 AD, and we had Starburst magazine. And throughout all of these things, one name was synonymous with UK carnivalesque publishing, and that was Des Skin. Des Skin, a luminary amongst comic book editorial and publishing, and a somewhat controversial figure. Won't comment on some of the allegations. No. His name is synonymous with quality magazines and comics. Now, by his own admission, in the 70s, he was a massive fan of Hammer horror movies. And of course, he got this magazine together to show you now. House of Hammer, which would be a brilliant magazine. I don't think I've got the entire run, but I've got hell of a lot of them. And I think I've shown you these before. Now, what you'd have movie reviews in there. You'd have a comic strip adaptation of a particular movie, all in black and white, like. And you'd have this thing called Van Helsing'S Terror Tales. What was it called again? This is the whole point of this bloody video. Van Helsing'S Terror Tales. And but the thing is that, as Des Skin himself admits, the timing was really disastrous. Because about 1974, he pioneered this magazine. But Hammer were absolutely dying on the bones of their arse at this time. You were talking the dregs, the satanic rites of Dracula, To the Devil, the Daughter. Just the tail end. They weren't getting back in anymore. They were losing deals with America, and it just wasn't. I mean, the quality of films was just disastrous, and their style could not compete with the likes of The Exorcist and, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Night of the Living Dead. All the independent stuff that was coming out in the States was pushing horror boundaries, whereas Hammer was all kind of cozy and, okay, bit of cleavage, bit of nookie, a bit of bloodletting, but it was still kind of, it's quaint, it's oldie English style of horror, gothic, but still great in many cases. Now, so the timing was bad, but those magazines are fantastic. Now, I got a mystery gift sent to me just a few days ago, and I had no idea who it came off. I didn't get any tip off. There was no warning this was arriving. So I contacted all the usual suspects that send stuff, the super channel contributors. I kind of had an idea who it might be. Kind of had an idea, because this particular person has a penchant for Hammer as well. Now, we've discussed it many times. So, in fact, he's the same person that sends that behind me there and that over there. The big movie canvas artworks. And so already most of you know who this guy is. But as it turned out, he was the last person to reply when I queried everybody. And everyone else just go, oh no, I didn't. No, it wasn't me. No, it wasn't me. Oh, what is it? Have you opened it? What is it? And then finally, Steve 007 Smith said, oh, I'm not sure now. What is it? So I told him, oh yeah, that was me. Yeah. I did kind of think it'd be him anyway, because he's a massive Hammer fan. So, what is it then? It is a collection of all the Van Helsing Tales of Terror from said Hammer magazine. Here it is now. Look, it's Mr. Peter Cushing himself on the cover, looking somewhat bemused like he's on the toilet and something you didn't expect has just exited. So, and it's all, lovingly reproduced in black and white. And I do think it's all of the tales that were in the magazine. Now, the magazine went from the House of Hammer to Halls of Hammer. Look at that. It's Mad Max 2. Ooh, that's got my finger out. Where's his nose there? And that's great artwork there, isn't it? Look at Max looking dishevelled and pissed off. But wonderful stuff. So it had changed its name to the Halls of, but it still kept the Van Helsing's Tales of Terror as a feature in it. And I've got a few of those, but this lovely compendium, or omnibus, however you want to term it, arrived mysteriously. And I feverishly opened it and thought, oh, wow, did I order this? I don't recall doing that. So it's Van Helsing's Terror Tales from the classic House of Hammer magazine, featuring zombies, vampires, dragons. Are you sitting comfortably? Plus lots more from the world's top horror artists. So, look, the artwork's fantastic. It's very 70s, and there's a slew of different artists in this, and different styles. But it's all black and white. It's all nice and vivid. There are only 2, maybe 3 pages tops in each story, so you rattle through them. I dug out a selection of my Hammer House of Horror magazines and Halls of Horror to see if are they all in this, the Van Helsing Terror Tales, and yes, they all are. So I am assuming that this is the full set, the full gamut. There's a lovely little foreword or introduction by Deskin himself from 2019, down in Brighton. And he says, having spent a lifetime in publishing, most titles that I've worked on have either been licensed from or inspired by major entertainment franchises and popular trends. Which is all fine and dandy, it pays the bills, but sometimes it can be as boring as that opening paragraph. It really doesn't get the creative juices flowing, simply adapting or reporting on other people's work. So I've always tried to inject a little original material into the mix, whether it's Tales from the TARDIS, exploring new aspects of the Gallifreyan universe in Doctor Who Weekly, or Arthurian legend in Hulk comic, or myriad non-Lucasfilm properties in Star Wars Weekly. Yeah, he edited all these as well. Or inserting the odd new comic strip into Starburst and trade paper Comics International. But with House of Hammer, in brackets, possibly the worst time launch of my career, just when the once dynamic film production company was running out of steam in the mid-70s, that's when they produced this. The need for original work was crucial. Following the cringe-inducing To the Devil a Daughter, it is that bad. There was absolutely nothing new of theirs for us to cover, leaving only adaptations of their old hits to justify both the magazine title and the license fee. So Hammer-related spin-offs became a key part of the contents, initially expanding on their woefully underused swashbuckler, Captain Kronos. God, we need more Kronos movies. It was tailor-made, tailor-created for a franchise. More adventures with the time-travelling, swashbuckling, heroic, horror-vanquishing, superstar. And sort of James Bondian womanizer as well. And then the equally underdeveloped Andrew Keir character from Dracula Prince of Darkness, the shotgun-toting, stallion-riding, vampire-slaying priest Father Shandor. All of these did get little spin-off stories in those magazines, but by far it was Van Helsing's Terror Tales, which is far more amicus flavoured because they were tales of, well, as we said, zombies, vampires, dragons, witches, ghouls, curses, leopard men. There's all sorts of things in here, and all different time periods. You've got the usual Edwardian or Victorian milieu of the Hammer movies, the gothic excesses of Hammer at its best. But you had the deep south bayous of America. You've got ancient Egypt. You've got all of the places, everywhere. Modern day, which would be the 70s back then, and just far-flung reaches. All different types of characters, but with a unique twist at the end. And it was the amicus portmanteau style of anthology stories with a little twist at the end, which kind of piques the interest of all of these tales. So, as I say, I've been through the magazines I brought down here. Here's a couple more. So you've seen Mad Max 2. I know that wasn't Hammer, but they were reviewing it. The Mummy's Shroud. And Oops, the back cover came off. Here's the terror tale at the back here. I'll show you. And, oh, that's very apt, isn't it? It's one called Wilbur's Whiskey. Wilbur can have his whiskey, so long as I've still got mine. Cheers, y'all. Actually, in the twist in that, he's a carnival owner, but he makes all deals on the side. He's got like different kind of exhibits, and he gets a huge load of crates of really cheap whiskey. And oh, I'm jealous, of course I am. But he gets all these Egyptian artifacts as well. But he opens one of the sarcophagi, and he thinks that's not a very convincing mummy. He drags it out and throws it, but it really was a mummy. And then the twist is that his little pest of an assistant. This is set in America as well, by the way. Comes in here, Mr. Wilbur, can I have one of those bottles of whiskey? And like, but Mr. Wilbur, where are you? And like, he opens one of the bottles. And he goes, well, oh, that's not whiskey. Don't know what the hell that is. And he opens one of the caskets, and inside is Wilbur, the carnival owner. And what's inside the bottles is embalming fluid. Yeah, she's been cursed by lifting the mummy out. So going back to the magazine. So you've got the comic strip there at the back. You have a lovely review. Hang on a second. Oh, God. These are old pages. Victor Frankenstein. And that's a special preview of a foreign version of Frankenstein. You've got, going back to Boris Karloff as the mummy originally. Now in that Wilbur's whiskey, the mummy he extracts from the sarcophagus is a dead ringer for Imhotep, the original mummy from Universal Horror, the mummy, the Boris Karloff. We're talking Night of the Living Dead there, and Martin. This is a little feature, The Crazies there on George Romero. And there's adverts for EC Comics. Again, that flavour of a twist in the tale. So a grisly comeuppance, that's very EC inspired. And of course, the likes of Creepshow, George Romero, was massively inspired by the likes of the EC Comics. So you've got a full comic strip adaptation of The Mummy's Shroud. You'll hear this. In fact, here's the main title to Mummy's Shroud. And it's all lovely vintage artwork. I will try to show you this. Because it's not glossy in colour, you should be able to see these things pretty well without the I spoke too soon. Without the ring light glitching it all out in a big supernova. But Fanatic reviews, lots of colour, well, lots of pictures, not colour. Blue Sunshine, Jeff Lieberman, before doing Squirm, about the worms. The Island of Dr. Moreau. This is the Michael York, Burt Lancaster version, which I've reviewed on the channel. Great monster makeup as well. Wonderful stuff. It's an odd adaptation and quite nasty in places. What's this? Oh, this again is the original, The Mummy's Shroud. Look at it. The artwork's very much of its time, but it's also great stuff. And that's in the magazines. Here's another one. Oh, funnily enough, that's a mummy one as well. I must have put them all together. Mad Max 2, Mummies. I did not know that I arranged things alphabetically, but clearly I did with these magazines. So the terror tale in this one is The Hand of Fate. And they'd open up with, there'd be Peter Cushing's Van Helsing introducing the character. And occasionally they would end with an epilogue where he'd say, and so obviously he met his comeuppance. He'll never imbibe that whiskey again. That sort of thing. But sometimes, like at the end there is no payoff. It's just the end of the story itself. There's a massive review and retrospective of the Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing Hammers the Mummy, which is absolutely amazing. What are we talking here? What's that? Oh, it's Warlords of Atlantis, aka at the time, Warlords of the Deep. Amicus, of course. Doug McClure, hero of the 70s. And there's the adaptation of The Mummy. There's a great little picture here. I'll show you. Where Professor Banning, Peter Cushing, is blowing holes through the the heroin-wielding mummy itself, blowing chunks with a shotgun through it. Which, of course, the infamous poster for the mummy had him striding out. This would be Christopher Lee as the mummy, as Caris, the mummy, striding out across the moors, and there'd be all police in the background wearing vintage police helmets like that, and there'd be shotguns being wielded, and there'd be a beam of light coming through him, and you'd be like, what the hell is that from someone's lantern? But of course, that was depicting that he had a massive shotgun blast through him, which doesn't really happen in the movie like that. He does get shot, but you don't see a great big hole there and someone shining a light through it. But it's a very striking image nonetheless. Anyway, that's the comics. So what Des Skin has done here, he's amassed all the Van Helsing Terror tales, and they are great. So you've got the introduction there. I went through all the magazines I could find and made sure that they were all in this sort of contents. So I think, as I said before, that we have the full gamut. All these. I'm not sure how many there are. It probably says somewhere. Oh, it does. From House of Hammer magazine and out of print for almost 40 years, Van Helsing's Terror Tales, presenting 21 terrifying tales of devilish doings, ghastly goings-on, murky mayhem and the blackest humour, all gathered together in great and gory graphic detail in this special edition. Well, are you sitting comfortably? It's brilliant. So they're a bit clearer. The artwork's a bit clearer here. And there's lots of decapitations. There's one taking place there. I'll try and get that round. You probably can't see that too well. But her head's been sliced off there. That's Mrs. Murphy's murders. And if you look, that doesn't look so much like Peter Cushing now, does it? No, it doesn't. What does he say here? Things aren't always the way they seem, are they? Even the most truthful people. Well, see what I mean in this tale of Mrs. Murphy's murders? Alright, the Hand of Fate. There we go. There he is again in a different sort of, he's never very happy, is he, this Van Helsing? You know, he spends his days staking vampires while they're sleeping, or pursuing them across, miniature mountain ranges and map painting backdrops. This is called the Hand of Fate. Corrigan was a lifer with nothing left to lose. Violence had been his way of life, and now, jailed for murder and armed robbery, he spent his days planning escape, little knowing he'd already been marked, touched by the Hand of Fate. I've read this one just before, The Hounds of Hell. This is about some swine of a fox hunter he's an ex-colonel, and Colonel, what's his name? Lieutenant Colonel Dorian Duckworth was a sportsman, one of that rare breed who delight in death for its own sake. Anything that flew, swam, crawled, crept, or just breathed was fair game, until ... One fateful day, the Colonel took a step over the edge and let loose the Hounds of Hell. He shotgunned to bits someone's cat. The dogs start savaging, and the little old lady comes out. You brute, you monster! So he butt stocks for her face, knocks her teeth out and all that, but he kills her. And his men are going, "What are you doing? You've gone too far now, Duckworth. We're going to have to call the police on this." So he turns the shotgun on one of his own riders and hunters and blows him away. And they're going, "Oh, you're a maniac, you're insane." Anyway, he drags himself into the old crone's house. And you go, "What? Just some silly old witch anyway." But her face appears in the mirror, and he realises, "Oh my God, she was a witch." So what happens next? Let me just remind myself. Look, there he is. Fucking, oh God. Smacking the old girl in the face. He's just blown her cat to bits, which has been savaged by his dogs. By the way, I hate fox hunters. I hate them with a vengeance. I have made that clear before, and I've made it clear to a couple of fox hunters, and I was quite nasty about it as well. Taste your own medicine, methinks. Yeah, fucking deserved it. There's him blowing his mate off his horse. Where is it there? Somewhere there. Christ, where is it? I can't even see it. Where the fuck is it? That ring light's doing my head in. He's just been shot. shot him in the chest and blown him off his horse. But then he sees the witch's face in the mirror, and he runs off and he's gasping, got to get out of here, gasp, just can't go on, I'm done for. No, gasp, it can't be. And it is the figure of death on horseback, skeletal death riding after him, hunting him down, and he goes off a cliff. No one, hang on. And of course, a very strange-faced Peter Cushing there says, nobody ever knew how Duckworth ended up at the foot of the cliff. Some say he fell, others say he was pushed. But me, I'd just say he'd gone to ground. The happy hunting ground, that is. You've got Native Americans here. You've got a massive witch demon thing in a swamp. Again, look at that. You've got the quintessential monster carrying a woman, you know. That hoary old image. That's the witch at World's End. And you've got, again, a very strange looking Van Helsing. I do apologise for the ring light. I always have to apologise for it. I know other people seem to get away with this. They have lights from multiple angles and everything's all lit up and bright and they can show things off. But me, I've just got that ring there going, yeah. But if it didn't have that on, you wouldn't see sod all. It's so dank and dismal and miserable. A strong sword arm and a stout Christian heart are the traditional requirements in the battle against evil. But what if evil forsakes tradition and makes its own rules? What requirements are needed then against a foe like the witch at World's End? And he does have a final epitaph here. I'm not sure what happens there. Won't spoil that one. But our mate, Mr. Van Helsing, says, such is the fate of those who judge by appearances and ignore the counsel of wiser men. But Threlkeld, that's obviously the hero, is young, with time on his side, all the time in the world, at least until the next young gallant comes riding by. I'll have to read that to make sense of what that really means. Body snatch. What else have we got? Oh, there's another. Yeah, the Carnival of Fear. Well, that's not to do with Wilbur's Whiskey. This is another carnival. And we do have someone's head. Look at that. Can you see there? Whoosh. Heads come off. Heads bouncing across there. Way! So we're afraid to have a bit of uber violence. Limb and noggin lopping. And monsters and neck biting and guzzling and stuff like that. But it wasn't Cullen, was it? So didn't really incur any sort of censorship wrath. Which is obviously, there's great artwork in this. You do get told who all the artists and the writers are. Like for instance, this one, Carnival of Fear. The script is by Steve Parkhouse, art by, I wish I'd picked a different one. Giacinto Cordenzi. Giacinto or Shinto Gaudenzi. But it's great, it's very vivid, very bold. Nicely detailed as well. A spot of blood. A winding country road on a misty night. A car driver yawning after a long day at the wheel. An infallible recipe for disaster. And it was a disaster of a peculiarly sinister kind that engulfed travelling salesman John Crouch from the moment he spotted on his windscreen a spot of blood. He takes out a cyclist and it looks like he takes him out again and again and it keeps coming back to haunt him. Creepshow 2, anyone? With the hitchhiker? There we go. Oh, by the way, I'm now playing the score for Twins of Evil. I did a video on this because this score was ripped off right royally for the Justice League animated series. Did a video specifically on that, so go and have a look at that. Oh, let me just wet my whistle before we go any further. This is by Philip Martel. And there's no way on earth that anyone can tell me that this theme was not ripped off almost entirely for Justice League. The animated show, not the movies. But kind of sped up a little bit. But You can't confuse me. Right, what's next? Oh, it's Wilbur's whiskey again. There's the aggrieved mummy after being tossed out. You know, he's like, it's not even a convincing mummy. It's just rags. Chucks it away. Fucking mummy's like, bastard. A travelling carnival freak show. A tawdry and callous mixture of the grotesque and the phony. Just such a show is owned by Wilbur Weeks in this story, which I call Wilbur's Whiskey. Captain Kronos. The Curse of Cormac. Some looks slightly longer. Now, what's this one? Beneath this bleak, windswept plain of Midden Moor lies the body of Cormac, legendary warrior chieftain, undisturbed for over 2,000 years until now. The treasure hunters are about to realise their wildest dreams and unwittingly unleash the Curse of Cormac. Now, sounds to me like some kind of Irish Celtic warrior, methinks. And then, right preceding this one, was that if these are in order, which I think they are, of publication. This one before is set in Japan, feudal Japan, with samurai warriors, samurai Japanese demons. This is called the hang on. I'm always giving the title before I let Van Helsing himself introduce it. In old Japan, ghosts and demons were taken very seriously. People sought the services of demon hunters, from whom sprang many legends. This is my version of one such legend, of the famous Raiko, and how he faced the demon at the gates of dawn. But you've got demonic samurai wielding warriors. You can't see that, I know, but and they're spinning all around the dojo, and obviously our hero is slicing and dicing and putting arrows into them. It's great stuff. Some other, this is the dragon one, I think. Yeah, here we go. And you've got Van Helsing with his top hat on there, looking a bit like Jack the Ripper. Legends can be fairly predictable, but sometimes in my researches I come across something like this crumbling old tomb. It tells of time and the Crusades, when Gavin of Lambourne, roaming the Holy Land, found, but wait, you'll soon see in this story I call Lair of the Dragon. There's some great artwork again in this one. I always like the darker, more boldly inked sort of 70s style comic strip. Let's see who's done this. Script by Steve Moore, famous Steve Moore. Art by Brian Lewis, the famous Brian Lewis. He probably is famous, I can't, but I do know Steve Moore's name, I do not know Brian Lewis's name. Look, but we've got helicopters. You see this? Helicopters. So, they are spanning all different ages and different types of story. This one, when fantasy and reality meet, the result is not always pleasant. As reporters found when Glenn Morrow, superstar of the Hollywood Dream Factory, gave a press reception in London. This is called Food for Thought. I have absolutely no idea what that story's about, but there's a helicopter crash involved in it. What have we got next? We're going backwards here, of course, but Jesus Christ! I don't know if you can see that there. This big brute has just pummeled someone's head with a rock or something. Hold that, blast you! And it's a copper, he's just smashed the copper's head apart with a huge big rock. Right, this one's, you've got Van Helsing with really straggly windswept hair. Midwinter on the moors. Dartmoor, to be exact. A bleak prospect, a bit like today. And one to chill the heart as well as the body. Few would care to travel across these moors by day, let alone when shadows fall. Let me tell you of one who was forced to, that he might keep a rendezvous with the midnight coach. This is pretty good. This is an escaped convict, obviously. And, I don't want to ruin things here. That looks really good, that one. The artwork's great. There's an old crone in it again. Oh, here's some very abstract, very almost Bernie Wrightson style stuff. Very Lovecraftian as well. What's that one? There's nudity. There's boobies. You can't see it. Oh, the ring light's protected me from censorship there. There's boobage, nudity, and right, it's okay. It is said that he who looks in a mirror long enough will see the devil peeping over his shoulder. A nasty shock indeed. This is the story of Harold Brust, who, if he didn't see the devil, saw something almost as unpleasant when he looked into Malvoisin's mirror. Should have read that first to make sure I could pronounce the bloody title. Okay, what's this one? Oh, this is a bit of a longer one. Okay. Again, this is a very darkly inked one. So I say, and the one preceding, that's the end of the previous story there. This is the start of the new story. But looking good. You may wonder what evil is being perpetrated here in this small town in Bavaria many years ago. A man dragging a body through the streets in the early hours? Well, I will tell you a story that has to be called One Man's Meat. And again, not looking in the least bit. The artwork's great, but that does not look like Peter Cushing there. It just doesn't. You know who it's meant to be, but anyway. And there's a so this is like a 5-page one. And so Hans Brummer became just dessert before he clotted, that is. How would you like a steak now, Hans? Yeah, I know the payoffs don't make any sense unless you know the story. Oh, here's the leopard men. The curse of the leopard men. This looks great. This is like set in the deepest Africa. And, there's people in pits full of stakes and they're impaled on them. And there's obviously leopard men, methinks. So, that's Dr. John Green, 19th century explorer, is the epitome of modern man, and as our story begins, is blissfully enjoying a honeymoon with his equally modern wife in Africa. His happiness, however, is soon to be dispelled by the very forces of darkness he refuses to acknowledge. I call this tale Curse of the Leopard Men. Ooh. This is the one set in the bayous, the deep south. There's motorbikes in this. There's hatchets and hammers, and there's grisly things in the swamp. And there's someone with a fantastic hairdo down there. Look at this hunk. Oh, and there's some lovely lady up there. Who did this one? Let's have a look. It's Steve Moore again. Script by Steve Moore. Art by Trevor Goring. Perfect name. So, the Bayou Country of the American Deep South. Sad cypress trees. Oh, fuck that. Do you know what the problem is? Fucking ring light again. Because it's shining down on the paper. I can't read what's there. You know, I create these problems for myself, but by hook or by crook, we get through them. Don't we, Peter? Let's try it again. Take 2. The Bayou Country of the Bayou Country of the American Deep South. Sad cypress trees dripping their gnarled branches into the oozing ground. Rank undergrowth, dripping the slime of centuries. Teeming wildlife that hides from the sun. And scurries and scuttles in the shadows. And within this mire, a feeling of death and doom that could only be described as swamp fever. God. Oh, Mr. Van Helsing, I do apologise. I think we have one here which is now set in the Roman times. And no, it's not the first one. This is the second tale, I think. Right. Yeah. And there's that's a great picture of him there. You know, that's not so much Van Helsing, more Baron Frankenstein, as he would say. The English Downs, steeped in history and full of natural beauty. If you can get far enough away from the roads, But then, roads have always been a terrifying problem here, as you'll learn from this ancient legend a local once told me. I call it Highway to Hell. And it is set in like ancient Roman times, by the looks of things. It's a very quick tale. And so perish all ruthless men who think the darker powers can be ignored. Of course, it may just be a legend, but this is the only Roman road I know that takes a detour, avoiding a place of horror and death that no one else dared to ignore. And here, I do believe, would be the first one. And if you look at Van Helsing there, what's that? It looks like some kind of like TV evangelist, or like one of them spiritualist guys, like Most Haunted, all that kind of bullshittery. Okay. And you can see how the evolution of these introductions, you know, this is the start of it now. You've heard all the other ones, or a lot of them anyway. This one, right? Good day to you, readers. My name is Professor Van Helsing. See, at least he finally, you know, having gone through all it in reverse, he introduces himself. Good day to you, readers. My name is Professor Van Helsing. You may know me throughout my attempts to permanently destroy the evil of Count Dracula. But today I'd like to tell you a strange story I heard during my travels. A macabre tale of the dead and the undead. I call this one Voodoo Vengeance. You can see that someone there is prancing amongst the graves. And you have got, obviously it's a voodoo ritual taking place. And someone will awaken. It's great. I do like the contents pages too. So you get like a little synopsis of what it's about. And it tells you who scripted it, who did the artwork. And there's a little picture from each of the stories. Folks, there you go. That is Van Helsing's Terror Tales from the classic House of Hammer magazine. And this came to me courtesy of Steve 007 Smith. And it's produced and edited and published by Deskin. So, guys, oh, how much is it? Does it say? It doesn't tell me how much it is. But it was published in 2019. So, I'm pretty certain you could probably get a hold of this. Go on Amazon or some other online establishment, or peruse your favourite comic book store. I was doing a bit of Peter Cushing there. Your comic book store. I'd relocated my whiskey from where it once resided. So anyway, folks, at this juncture in time, I will have to depart because I have other things to do. Although I would like to sit here the entire day, read all those comic strips out, maybe turn the music down and the ring light off, because it doesn't half distract me. You're trying to do Peter Cushing's voice. I know, you didn't even realise I was trying to do it, but I was. Failed dismally. Folks, I have been always shall be Kilt-Man. So in the meantime, in this ever 70s artwork, comic book, horror, investigative in-between time, please keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic, be happy, be healthy, and most importantly, just be yourselves. Don't be anybody else, just be yourselves. Don't be a sheeple, don't follow the flock. Take your own path, be yourself. Take a step back, look inside yourself, and see who you really are. I'm lucky that I found the exact person that I really am. I know many, I drink with them, who are just go with the flow, same old, you know, no adventure, no personality, no nothing. I think that is one of the worst crimes you can ever commit. I'm doing a Van Helsing epitaph now. I don't believe it. It's seeped into me. You've got to, at the end of your days, you look back, you've got to think, wow, I did that. Those were my ideas. I created those. I followed them through. I did that. I turned back from that when everybody else went forward. I was interested in this. Just so many people don't act like that. They don't. They genuinely follow everybody else. They can't make up their own minds. I don't understand why that is. Are they just afraid to do it? I don't know why. I have always strived to be individual and be myself. If by happenstance and pure coincidence I'm just like someone else, that is just one of those things. But no, I've always striven to be just me. And I urge and implore you all to be the same. I know many of you are, but there's many who aren't. So, anyway. But there are many drunkards out there as well. So, I'm with you boys. Doesn't that music, that's the main theme from the Hammer House of Horror TV show. That sums up how I feel now. Now I'm bereft of whiskage. I would love at this point to just suddenly go and pull up another one, but I haven't got another one. Fear not though, new rations and supplies are on the way. So folks, please, just be happy, be yourselves, and I'm going to see you all. Laters, who moved the stop button?